What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, mindset strategist and coach, and I love sharing nuggets of wisdom about the stories that we tell each other, and more importantly, the stories that we tell ourselves. So join me and my special guests as we share our personal stories of strength and triumph every every week on Dream Vision 7 Radio. It's on Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. And listen online on your mobile device, in your car, or you can ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio anywhere you are. And so tune in every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time to get real stories and tips on how to turn your life and your story around and evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. And I'm so excited to be here with you today for another edition of Look for the Good. And I have Jenny Cohen waiting in the wings. Hello, Jenny.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great and excited to be here.
So good to have you here today. And Jenny and I can't wait to talk to you about Jenny. And before we get started, we often talk about following our dreams, right? And we talk about the stories that support us. And what do we say to ourselves, especially when, we have this idea in our mind of how our life is supposed to go? We have these expectations, right? And let's face it, life doesn't always follow those expectations. So what do you do? What do you do about that? How do you get past that when life throws stuff at you? And I love talking about that. And Jenny's got some great stories to share with us today about how she overcame things in her life. And one of the things I love most about her is how she has taken an art form of dancing and turned it into a method of healing. So there's so many cool things she's going to share with us. Let me tell you just a little bit about Jenny, and then I'm going to have her tell us about herself. Jenny believes in a world where everyone can dance to heal and feel safe in their bodies, knowing they're created in beauty and perfection in spite of life happenings, just what we were talking about. Jenny healed through her Outside in Mastery process, presented in the international #1 bestseller, Outside in Recovery, Dancing My Way Back to Myself After Breast Cancer. I love that. I love the title. I love everything you do. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get involved in this work? And, we just want to hear who you are inside and what's important to you.
First, thank you, Carrie, for having me. Audience, is such a pleasure and an honor to meet you all. So I'm Jenny C. Cohen. I am an outside in recovery master, and I help people find themselves from the outside in. Dance has been something that has absolutely been the key for me to find my way back to myself. What do I mean by that? You ever drive somewhere and you don't know how you got there? You want an automatic pilot? How often does that happen to us? Every day, every hour, right? Especially now we're in this, I like to call it panini world.
Love that.
We all have such different opinions of really what's happening. Either way, we all went globally through some form of lockdown where we had to get through the minutia of being by ourselves or stuck with the same people and this fear of this unknown world. So oftentimes we would keep ourselves busy with other things. And for a lot of us, we're not out of that yet. For me, when I got my breast cancer, I did not realize until I stopped using, because I was using Movement to Heal during the breast cancer. And then afterwards, it became this compulsive thing for me to not feel how different my body was. And I had to add somatic breath work to it. And so when you tune into your 5 senses, when you're doing any form of movement, it pulls you into the present immediately. because most of the time I'm an over planner. Anybody here an over planner?
Hmm.
I plan every second. I have color codes for everyone in my family. All of our pets, I have 11.4. Ask me about that later, Carrie.
I remember
And
the
they
cats.
all have different color cat. Yeah, and two dogs. So there you go.
And
There's
two
that.
dogs.
Yeah,
They
and
keep the cats in line.
well, the cats keep the dogs in line, honestly.
Hilarious.
Right? So part of all of this has just been I overplanned everything, and it wasn't until I took a step back and went, "Oh, I love to dance." And yet, if I am not present, I'm doing that. What do I need to do beyond this? And then came in evolved neurolinguistic programming. So I
Mm,
married this outside in approach because that was actually the hidden thing for me. My breast cancer was not for me personally. Again, this is my subjective opinion. I'm not
mhm,
a doctor,
mhm,
Carrie. I am an occupational therapist. I have a master's degree in that. However, for me, it was the stress of my life until the breast cancer overcame and my
mm.
body couldn't fight it off.
Wow.
So it was this analysis of pretty much a trauma filled life well before COVID came, well before. And it
Wow.
wasn't until I started to analyze all of that through the NLP work that I can honestly say to you, I really doubt breast cancer is going to come back because I'm dealing with all of that buried darkness that I revealed and let go.
Mhm,
You know that adage they say about, um, oh, you can't give from an empty well, right? You got to fill and
mhm.
help the world from the overflow. Well, my well doesn't have a bottom. It's kind of cracked. It's kind of
Right.
cracked and dusty. So part of my healing through the dance and the NLP work has been putting a bottom to that well, sealing it
Mm.
so that as I start to fill, it's actually filling versus,
Yes,
you
the
know,
cracks. Yes, I
the
love that
cracks.
analogy. Yes, I love that. I wrote a song about that one time. That's really like a broken cup, right? You're trying to
Yes.
fill it, but it keeps spilling out,
Yeah.
right? And it's a great visual for people. I love analogies like that. So that's really, really powerful. And I love how you took all this work for yourself and now you've healed. You wrote a book about it. And now, how do you help people heal with this outside in recovery program?
So my clients, we primarily focus first on being in their bodies, right? And when we talk about being in your bodies,
Hmm.
for breast cancer survivors or some cancer survivors, anybody who's gone through something traumatic, you have to leave your body to get through the trauma. That's just the bottom line.
Hmm.
I'm going to just start at least from that acceptance and understanding, right? Oftentimes we forget to come back in our bodies.
That's very interesting, right?
Right? Well, for me, the trauma of the IV. You have to sit there while the nurses gown up in all this protective gear, come towards you, me, with no protective gear, and then put the poison in. And then you're like, whoa. And then I have to stay here.
Right. Oh my gosh.
How she put drugs in to put me sleepy so I won't have a fight flight
Hmm.
response.
Hmm.
So you go into freeze, right?
Right.
And the movement and the incorporation of breath and tuning into the five senses is a daily practice we start with.
Hmm.
Because oftentimes when you're present, you'll have feelings. Ah, feelings. What are those?
No,
Right?
not feelings. We can't handle those.
Well, besides the expected, I'm always supposed to be happy and
Right. Oh,
grateful.
right.
Happy and grateful. Those are the only feelings that are acceptable, are they not?
It's so
Right?
true, especially now, after everything we went through, like, we're not allowed to still feel sad or upset about that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
part of that was all my life, that accumulated into my breast cancer was not allowed to feel anger, sadness, really
Mhm.
ever to talk about fear. And you
Mm.
had to recognize it to release it.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
there's gratitude. There's also like you're pissed off.
Right.
Pissed
The
off. You
complete
have to be like,
opposite.
I'm really mad, and then release it. If you don't recognize it, it becomes a
Yeah,
poison deep in you, and we don't realize that.
it's
We're
true.
human.
It's true.
We
It gets
came
stuck in ourselves, right?
yes, we
Mhm.
came into this world to experience
Right.
all of it, folks, not
All the
just what
feelings.
we yeah, it doesn't being human, it's the
Mhm.
whole gamut of it, is it not? Yeah.
Yeah, it
So,
totally is, and it's interesting. This is just fresh on my mind because I'm gonna bring up the Barbie movie. Um,
mm,
Did you see the Barbie movie? I went to it last night to see with my daughter, and of course, I cried like a baby at the end when they were talking about being human, and there's so much to feel, right? But that's the reason we came here. But yet everybody tries so hard to numb out and push it away and not feeling. And, I have coping strategies, but coping still not feeling. It's just coping past it. We need to process those emotions in order for them to flow freely the way that they were designed to do.
Exactly. The second component of it is to, once you're feeling safe with me, through movement, right? So
Hmm.
let's be really clear. Besides your brain, which has all those neurons, your heart and your gut also have neurons. So that
Hmm.
communication has to become clear conduit.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
when I start talking about your subconscious, which is 90% of you sitting back here, right?
Hmm.
Audience, 10% of you is listening, and there's a 90% of you already making quick decisions about what you're hearing Carrie and I speak of
Hmm.
already, even before you're aware of it, right?
Right.
So for me to start approaching your subconscious, they have to trust me. You have to trust me on that internal level.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm going to put you in touch with your body and let it become a two-way street.
I love that.
And
That's
that's
really
that
powerful.
process.
Yeah, it's
And
so
here's the thing. Yeah.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say, I love what you're saying because just to back up for one quick second, I love about the heart and the gut, because we forget that, that's the second brain, our gut. And if those two aren't talking to each other, then you got a big disconnect. And then the heart, that's our magnetic energy. But what you said that was so powerful is the people are listening and they're making whatever judgment because the mind's so quick to like put it in a category. Let's call it this or that, or let's identify it instead of being in that curiosity mindset. But something I've been focusing on recently and learning about is that subconscious, the reason it happens and it's so hard to catch is that it's 3 seconds faster than
Yeah.
a rational mind.
Yes, your subconscious was forming safety mechanisms from when you were 0 to
Hmm.
7.
Hmm. Hmm.
That was the formative year. So
Right.
whatever you were exposed to, it formed safety loops for you.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes, for example, like for me, I'm still trying to battle my willingness to make money. It's very much associated with being worthy, the belief of
Hmm.
worthiness. It goes
Yes.
deeper than, oh, I'm a housewife and I haven't worked as an OT. My kids are 24. Almost 25. So I was 26. I have 26 years I haven't worked and I'm not worthy. It goes back. When
Absolutely.
I was
Oh yeah.
born and
Hmm.
not recognized because I was female for a month,
Hmm.
my birth. That's where it
Wow.
came from. And
Wow.
or my mother's worry about how she's going to provide money for her family because her husband, patriarchy family, he had to send all the money home. And she was like, how am I going to have a baby and
Hmm.
make money? That's when all of this belief of worthiness came from
Yeah.
for me. So think of
Right.
that for you. There's
Right.
some things we didn't know about as children. And the only way to make sense of it is to make it about us.
Yeah.
What do I have control of? So I'm going to beat on myself and then keep myself safe in these loops. And
Yeah.
that's why that work is really important. That puts a lot of stress on us.
It sure does. And, most people, I do it in form. We all have different methodologies that
Mhm.
we get there, right? I talk in terms of stories, right? We get underneath the stories, but the stories are really the beliefs. It's really what you're talking about. It's those safety mechanisms too that our brain is always creating because it thinks it's keeping us safe. But because those were designed before we were 7 years old, we never ever stop. We're so busy. We're just go, go, go. You said the stressful lifestyle. We all get that. We all can relate to that. We never take the time to stop and ask ourselves, hey, wait a second. What did I just say to myself? Is that story even true? Right? Because when we stop to think about that, all those things that you uncovered when you were going through your healing process are not necessarily true. And we really didn't even understand it. But yet we're still letting something that we designed at 7 years old run our lives 95% of the time. Our subconscious is running our life. Like you said, you started off saying the autopilot driving thing, right?
Oh, big time, big time. And the key is to tease it and make the subconscious part of your work. It
Mm,
just want your subconscious mind carries just wants to keep us safe.
exactly.
And it will sometimes on automatic pilot keep you in a horrible situation because that's what it knows.
Yes, comfort zone.
Comfort zone. Even
Mhm.
if it's uncomfortable, it's still comfort in
Right,
that.
because right? The devil right?
The devil, and so
Yeah.
we just want to encourage people, take a breath and understand. Because for me, like before I got breast cancer, I was about to launch my career as a belly dancer.
I love that.
I was like ready. And at the same time, I also knew it's very lonely. It puts a strain on your marriage,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And you have to keep up with the Kardashians, meaning clothing, physique, dieting,
Sure.
everything. You got to do
Mhm.
all of that to be being paid.
Right.
I still was ready to do it, and then I came home from a huge event in Germany and found the lump.
Oh,
And then I
wow.
started my breast cancer treatment, and I had to
Mhm.
forego all of this. I had built up all of this. Ooh, what's the word? Momentum.
Momentum.
Momentum. I was
Right.
gonna,
You were gonna
people
do
were
it.
noticing me. I was winning
Right.
competitions. I got to go to Germany. People who were big names knew who I was.
Mm.
And they were saying they were moved and crying from my performances. So I was ready to go out there and just kill it. Right. And then I
Yeah.
found this lump, and it made me really sit back and go, whoa, maybe I don't want to be a belly dancer.
Mm.
Wait, I really wanted to be one. I trained so hard. And it was no, the answer was no. It was not what meant to be for me. And then I started to see all the incongruencies in it.
Yes. Mhm.
It really
Mhm.
wasn't a fit for my life. I
Isn't
was
that
so caught
interesting?
up in pursuit of that goal. So I really love what you were
Mm.
saying, like making the most of the shifts in your life. I'm much happier now incorporating dance in my life as a healing modality.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing. It's unique and you're helping other people, right? And like often when something brings us to our knees, like a diagnosis like that, or somebody dying, or things that happen in our lives that we wish didn't happen, that we have no control over, that bring us to our knees, you'll a lot of times hear people say, wow, cancer actually saved my life, or whatever their stumbling block was, right? As crazy as that might sound to other
Oh,
people.
yeah, and so we want to be careful. I want to be careful. I'm not gaslighting the horribleness of the situation.
Of course.
For me, right? Um, the the cancer was one stop and listen, Jenny. I
Mm,
ignored it, Carrie.
wow.
And I got through the cancer treatment, went right back to dancing. I still ignored the calls to be present in my body. It wasn't until I shifted the use of dance for myself and I started noticing the huge difference for me. The
Wow.
second time was, and I have permission to speak on this, so just a TMI, a trigger warning for people. Okay, and I'll
Okay.
keep the details down to a minimum. I have permission from my child to talk about it. When I was back on my feet and going back to dance events, I went right back into 100% doing events, and
Mhm.
one of my children went into distress,
Oh,
like
wow.
mental distress.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until they elected to speak to me, and they were about 17, that they were self-harming severely and making plans not to be around in this world.
Oh.
And I went into automatic pilot, Carrie. I was like, okay, I'm an OT. I can be all like, medical and clinical. And so quickly made a doctor's appointments for them, locked up all the knives, right? Still running, still running. They had a relapse, and it was really bad.
Mhm.
That's when I was like, that was the beginning of my real work, Carrie. Because
Wow.
my children were IVF babies. I loved them so much. They were the center of my universe. But
Mhm.
I hadn't been present in a long time.
Mm.
And it took that to stop me in my tracks.
Wow, you just give me a whole body chill on that. That is really powerful, and we're gonna break real quick right here because I know everybody wants to take a little breath because Jenny's just sharing this incredible vulnerability with us, and it's beautiful. So don't go anywhere, we'll be right back with Look for the Good. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Look for the Good. I'm here with Jenny Cohen. We're talking about her outside in recovery. And she was just sharing with us the most powerful. I did really have this full body chill moment when you shared about your child. Talk to us a little bit about how did you help them get over that? And how did that stop you in a good way to really start to be present in your life?
I had to heal myself first. I could not be, well, that belly dance wonderful career I dreamed of, I dropped
Mhm.
it like a hot coal
Wow.
because I literally had to be present. My child could not be left alone.
Mhm.
I had to monitor them. I had to constantly check on them. It was this agreement that they want to stay home and not go into a lockdown unit,
Wow.
that I was allowed to do safety checks
Mhm.
because sometimes a child who will self-harm, I do it areas you can't see, like between the toes, just so you know. So, things like that. And it was this constant check on them. And I'm using deliberate pronouns so you can't tell which one of my kids we're talking about to protect their
Sure.
anonymity. And then for me, it was this inward refocusing on being present. I was instinctively already, and it became a full focus. I have to be present. How do I be present? Because
Hmm.
for me, before I got breast cancer, one of my other children, because remember I have fraternal twins,
Mhm.
was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Wow.
So type 1 diabetes, when you're a young child, you can still die in your sleep when it goes too low if you're not vigorously monitoring it.
Right.
And both my kids were elite athletes before, so
Mhm.
my child would have rebound lows, like 20s and 30s and 40s.
W
Normal is
wow. Mhm.
80 to
Mhm.
120. Okay,
Mhm.
so you have to wake them up. They have to eat something,
Right.
and they're too young to be responsible.
Of
So that had
course.
already been going on about 5 years. So every night for 5 years, I was staying up until 2:30, and then finally going to bed and letting my child sleep for that 1.5 hours
Wow.
without supervision, because my
Mhm.
husband woke up at 4:15 to start his workday, and he would check on our child's blood sugars.
Mhm.
All right,
Wow.
so that's
Yeah,
how
that's
vigilant
tricky.
we were. However, our child's safe, never had to go to the hospital yet, knock on wood.
Knocking.
Right, right. So, for me, that the lack of sleep helped me, encouraged me, contributed to me not really being in my body. I was worrying about the
Mm.
past when my
Mhm.
child went to the hospital. I was worrying about the future. What if my child dies? How would I be a parent with one kid? Literally, this is what my subconscious was consumed with,
Right.
right?
Safety, safety,
Right.
safety.
Safety,
Mhm.
safety, safe. I never felt safety for most of my life anyways, prior to that. I mean, I,
Yeah.
I had someone, I met my husband, you know, and then,
Mhm.
being married, that has its own issues. So we'll
Yes.
leave that
That's
one
a whole
alone.
other show,
That's a
Jenny.
whole, I'll come back for that one. All right. Anyways, so for me and this child in this very alert method of breath work, I'm telling you, none of us breathe enough.
It's so
Like right now,
true.
stop. Everybody just take a breath. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure there's no tension in your neck. And exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Right? Make sure you're doing that 3 times minimum a day where you just stop cold and fill your body with air from the tummy up to
Mm.
the collarbones and then back down. Then I added 5 senses: smell,
Mhm.
taste, hearing, the feeling of my clothing on my body. And I would soften my gaze so I could see peripherally, meaning I'm
Mhm.
not super focused on front. If I
Mhm.
could see the side views, that would calm my nervous system
Mm.
down because
Yes.
it automatically does that.
Yeah.
So these two things, the breath work
Like
and the
EDMR.
five senses,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
that automatically brings up the thriving nervous system, not
Yeah.
the I'm in danger nervous system,
Right.
right?
Or yep.
And doing that, in the past, I wouldn't be in my body and I didn't know when my child was in danger. These days, I could sit here talk with you, Carrie, an audience. I know immediately when my child's in danger because
Mhm.
I'm present. I'm
Mhm.
so in tune with them.
Yeah.
I know if they haven't, because we have a system, right?
Mhm.
They text and check on, like, can they text and check on themselves, but they're on a family
Mm-hmm.
messaging.
Mm-hmm.
And we know if I don't hear by them from a certain time, they've overslept. Sometimes they just overslept. They're young people. It's normal.
Yeah.
They're in college.
They like to sleep
Um,
in.
yeah, they like to sleep in when they can. And
Yeah.
sometimes I already know and I can feel it.
Yeah. You're tuned into when you
I'm
slow
tuned in.
down, you're tuned into yourself and them, right?
Yes.
Your own instincts. We're tuning those
Yes.
up as we do that breath work, as we start to slow down, as we meditate or, even dance as meditation or walk as meditation. And
Walking.
right. And that's when we start to really hone in on that muscle, on that intuitive muscle, especially as parents, right? We are
Oh
super,
yeah. I
super
mean,
intuitive.
how do these children these days, how are you surviving? I don't understand. Even though I'm Generation X, right, Carrie? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, we didn't have cell phones. They
Mm-hmm.
had commercials. Where are your children? It's 10 p.m. And I'm
Right.
like, yeah, that was my life. Like my kids and my parents are on Life 360. So I can track whenever they leave the house,
That's
especially
great.
my parents.
Right. A little role reversal there, tracking the
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, but it is that inner GPS, right? We're talking about bringing that inner work. It's that inner GPS, knowing where we are at any given point in time, emotionally, mentally. And when we can get in touch with that in ourselves, we get so much better at helping other people manage that, teaching that stuff, those skills to our children, to the next generation. Because if they're, I too have kids who are in their 20s. And so it's different. We didn't grow up with those electronics. They're not as in tune with themselves as we might have been. And we weren't even that tuned, right? Until we get older. Um, so it's really it's working that muscle, like any muscle, like your dance muscle. You had to work it and work it. Same thing with being present and practicing the 5 sense meditation and working on our intuition, all that stuff. It's a practice, just like yoga.
Yes. How then can we fully feel the happiness and the joy?
Right.
You want to feel it fully, right? When my husband and I were newlyweds, we had this very sad painter painting our house because his wife was very sick. And he said to
No.
us, life is ups and downs. You're either going up or you're either going down. And our youth, we were like, that's really pessimistic. Like, we were like, we just want to be up. And now I'm like, he was right. So I gotta enjoy going up, and then I have to savor the ups. So when you're going down, I still remember the ups and know there's a
Mm,
up coming. Because you
exactly.
gotta enjoy it. We can't savor the happiness if
There
we
needs to be
haven't felt the
contrast.
non-happiness, that
Yeah.
contrast, right?
The contrast is very important. We need the contrast. We can't, I say to my kids all the time, you can't know what you want if you don't know what you don't want. So sometimes if they're trying to figure, I don't know what I want. All right, well, let's figure out what you don't want, right? Let's get the list of what we don't want because you need to know what you don't want. Knowing what you don't want gets you closer to what you want. So wherever you're at, start there. You don't have to have it all figured out. We still don't know what we want to be when we grow up, right, Jenny? It's evolving.
Well, you know what it is? Okay, so one of my mentors talks about you want to be the rock in the stream because
Mm,
a rock knows what it is.
yeah.
It is solid. It knows and it enjoys being in the sun. It savors the rain falling on it and everything else that comes into its existence.
Mhm.
It just lets it flow by. For
Yeah.
example, right? If I'm in conversation with someone and they're saying the exact opposite of what I believe in, if I have a reaction to it, I go first now. Why did I have that reaction? Because it got nothing to do with me, how they feel. Then I'll work on myself.
Mhm.
If I can let it just flow right by, because
Mm,
I'm my rock, I'm that rock, so I can
mm.
savor my own happiness separate,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what I want to be. At the same time, I
Yes.
do also want to really emphasize how important it is to heal in community.
I love that.
You
Yeah.
want to heal in community, meaning the self-care part of it is important. And also, there's an aspect to the healing. You want to work with someone, whether it's Carrie or myself. Therapists are very useful to a point. Sorry, therapists.
Mhm.
Because sometimes there's another layer that has to be addressed. We're
Right.
multi-layered, like
Right.
cabbages, Carrie.
Like
Like
cabbages, I like that. Yeah.
not onions, Do I have time to talk about the cabbage story, or should
We
we
have
do that?
time. We have time to talk about. Oh, actually, you know what? We have to break real quick. Thank you for checking in. See, another host, we're going to talk about your podcast too, knows when to check in. We're going to take a quick break, guys. We'll be right back with the cabbage story. Don't go anywhere. We're right back at it on Look for the Good with Jenny Cohen. And I love you were talking about so many amazing things. We're talking about the cabbage, why we're more like cabbages than we are onions. Let's talk about the veggies.
Let's talk about the veggies. So listen, Shrek's the layers of the onion were unpeeling. Here's the thing, I'm really a cabbage, so are you. Now, I come from a lineage of farmers. I still can't
Hmm.
grow anything. I kill them all. I'm so sorry, my plants, the karma of it. However, I learned this very interesting story about cabbages. When you grow them 6 feet apart, because people think, oh, I want big round cabbages, right?
Hmm.
They grow really tight and small.
Interesting.
If you grow them closer, they grow open and bigger in
Really?
community. Yeah, all
Mm.
cabbages, y'all. And the healing process is you might go to a therapist and open up your outer layers, right? And then you have to do more work beyond that. You have to do some energy releases of that.
Yes.
You have to address the fact that not only are you carrying trauma in your tissues, we also do things like myofascial release,
I
okay, in
love
your
that.
body. Release what you've been carrying in your body, which is another layer of cabbage.
Mm-hmm.
Go in a little deeper, and there's lineage we've carried from our other generations of trauma and
Mm.
belief systems that's been handed down to us like a fine family tradition. And then you're gonna release that to find the deeper inmost who you are.
Mm.
And all of
Powerful.
the things we discussed in this session together and this wonderful time together has been addressing those layers. None of it can be done in isolation. You always want to be in community.
I love that. The power of community. It's one of the things I love most about doing, and you can probably agree with this, is my class that I teach, right? Because it's like a group coaching. And I always tell people the magic happens in sharing with the other women in the group. That's the power. Yes, I am there to facilitate, but the breakouts and the sharing and the accountability that happens and the sharing on such a deep level of stories they wouldn't normally tell anybody else because they're doing the same story work. They're all pulling out those ugly stories that they thought they'd never share. And it's in those moments that I feel like most of the transformation happens.
And so the caveat, of course, right,
Yes.
is you have to be in your body to know if the person you're working with is safe for you.
Mm,
That's the
good
biggest
point.
thing,
Mhm.
right? Because as a student of dance, sometimes teachers aren't ready to teach and they start teaching.
Mm,
And you can actually get harmed in that. So just be aware. You want to be in your body, knowing what you want, and then you can resonate and find the teacher that's in their body.
yeah.
Then they facilitate a safe space, like
Mhm.
Carrie's, like my dance classes, because there is an exchange of energy no matter whether or not you recognize it. It happens, y'all. Even now, in this conversation between Carrie and I, and you're listening, there's an exchange of energy for you, audience.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Tell us a little bit more about your dance classes. Where does the healing and the transformation come from? I love that.
During my cancer treatment, I had to go to dance events because even if I wasn't physically dancing, the energy generated in the room,
Mhm.
or I would go to the show of the event, and the energy, especially with a really fantastic performer that could give as much energy as they were receiving from the audience,
Mhm.
that's healing in itself. Any dance class where you feel safe in, you will heal from that energy. That's one. In
Love it.
my dance classes, I'm one of those teachers that rarely looks at myself. I'll be watching you the whole time
Mhm.
because I will instinctively know how to adjust my levels of class for you.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's what happens in my dance classes. There's a lot of cueing in my dance classes for somatic breath work, tuning into your five senses.
Mhm.
You can do that on your own just from hearing this from Carrie and I in this session.
Right.
Do that for yourself.
Mhm.
And always do a check-in before you go into movement class, whether it's dance or not, yoga class, meditation class. Make sure you are clear in where you end and where you start
Mm.
And then you go into the class. And then when you walk out, if there's any time you're feeling anything but joy and safety and happiness, make sure it's really coming from you, because sometimes we can bring other people's feelings with us out of the room.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, and I just love that, and again, you're creating a community of people all doing this together. You're all working it's the same dynamic I was explaining in my class that happens in your class, but you're physically there. And that is that energy movement, that offering a high vibe space for people to walk into in and of itself is healing. Add the music to that. Now you've got two levels of healing. Now the breathing and the being present with the mindfulness and the five senses, you have so many beautiful things going on at once that I'm going to have to come out to Utah and really do some of these classes.
Oh, you can have access to me remotely, Carrie.
Ooh, tell us about that.
Yeah, so if you go to www.danceandheal.com, you get access to a free class of mine. It's a whole hour video. You don't do the whole thing in one go if you don't want to, right?
Hmm.
The first half, the first minute is just a cue in to what we just talked about, being
Hmm.
present
Hmm.
in your breath work. Then you have a 30-minute cardio class with me where I'm mirroring you and cueing you verbally, and there's a banging a Sharky music workout music that's licensed, so
Hmm.
you can play it anywhere, right?
Hmm.
And then the second half of it goes into myofascial release work.
Nice.
So you can have access to me anywhere. Just go to danceandheal.com,
.com,
check out
yep.
that class. If you like it, let me know how I can get you more.
That's really cool. I love that. I hope everybody goes and checks out Jenny's site and does the free class because why wouldn't you? It's free, right?
It's free and you have access to it forever.
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 I
And
can tell
then
you're from Massachusetts.
forever.
Forever. That's a wicked good class. You got to get it.
Like a good class.
Wicked pissa. Tell us about your book, and where they can find out more about your book. And you're involved in a couple other collaborative books. Is that what you were telling me that earlier?
Yes, yes. So, Outside in Recovery, Dancing My Way Back to Myself After Breast Cancer is a no holds, I get emotional.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
no
okay.
holds barred real talk about lifting the curtain to show you what happens in our minds when we're going through breast cancer.
Hmm. Yeah,
People, we put up a brave face. We're supposed to be warriors, and we're really lost and
yeah.
scared. And it talks about how we could really often feel alone, even surrounded by friends and family.
Hmm.
And for me, I'm a belly dancer, and I was still doing it during and after, and I literally could not see myself in the camera, in the mirrors. I would see my eyelashes, I see my costume, and I could not see my face. And it was this weird dysmorphia where I couldn't even see my
Mm.
body, or I
Wow.
didn't recognize my body.
Hmm.
And I would see a mind's eye idea of what it looked like. And as I
Hmm.
recovered, right, it it distorts how you perceive things. Well, some of
Wow.
it's chemo. If you do chemo, some of it's chemo brain, because chemo
Yeah.
doesn't just go to where your cancer is, it goes throughout
Hmm.
your body, right?
Hmm.
So the book talks about the 8-step discover process that I went through. One of it was recognizing anger about it.
Sure.
Another one was talking about survivor guilt.
Mm.
A lot of other people didn't make it through this fight. Then you're worried about, oh, am I making the most of this second chance at life? What do you mean I'm supposed to rest? I can't rest. I'm lucky enough to be alive, so I should be
Mm.
killing myself again.
Wow.
Things like that,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
just understanding that life is very different afterwards, and that's a
Hmm.
new normal that we want to start to learn about.
Yeah, the new normal. That's really fabulous and powerful because, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that and the emotions. And I love what we started talking about was feeling those emotions, right? Bringing them in, labeling them what they are, and letting it be okay to not be okay.
It's okay to not be okay. I want to write a second book about what happens when you've been in chemo-induced menopause, because that's a whole nother
Ooh.
ringer I'm going through,
Oh,
Carrie.
that's
I gotta
another
come back and
book.
tell you about forget about the book. I gotta give you like a real talk about
Yeah,
this stuff.
I'd
And that
love
might be
to.
like an adult content one because
I
it's
think that would be
crazy.
good. Yeah, I
Guys,
think that
oh
would
my
be really
gosh. Yeah.
good
Yeah,
because
it was
everybody,
intense. No one talks about
yes.
it, and I'm actually um kind of pissed. And I
I
can
love
say
it.
that because that's part of my healing process.
Right?
Yeah. So the
I've
other two
never
books
heard that before. You see?
oh, what, being pissed or
Chemo. No, I like the being pissed. Feel the emotion, let it out, right? I've never heard of chemo-induced menopause, but doesn't it make perfect sense?
oh yeah.
Hmm.
That's why the younger women who get cancer of any kind and
Yeah.
they're put on chemotherapy, if they haven't had children yet, they never will their own because it
Wow.
completely stops cold, right? There
Really?
are some discoveries where some small, not many,
Hmm.
some will get their periods again
Hmm.
afterwards, but I don't know if they can get pregnant. So
Oh,
they'll be
right.
encouraged to consider adoption and things like that.
Hmm.
It's devastating for a lot of the younger people. They can
Totally.
the option to be a mom without adoption
Hmm.
or egg donation is gone.
Oh, that's really tough. We are
And
definitely going
people
to talk
don't
some more
talk
about
about
that.
that.
I
Yeah.
hope you write a book about that because I think the world needs to have more information about that and workarounds. And
Well,
I just
things to demand from your doctors.
exactly the knowledge beforehand when you're making those decisions, because a lot of times we don't have the whole story and we're too much in fight or flight to really know what to ask, which is why I think you really need a great advocate for you when you're going through stuff like that. Like you said, community,
Yeah.
having a
I
good
never
support
had
group.
right. And some of us, because I was an immigrant, right, Carrie?
Mhm.
I don't speak my mother tongue fluently because I
Mhm.
speak English fluently. So I didn't even know how to approach the topic with my mother and my aunts. I don't live near
Wow.
them.
Yeah.
So you don't have that older generation matriarchal community
Mhm.
to be like, you got to watch out for this.
Mhm.
Right. And they wouldn't even know, they don't even talk about that in my generation before me.
Wow. Right.
So I have to be the generation that talks about it because people get really uncomfortable. I'm like, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to talk about it because you have to deal with it. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't want you to do this in
Yeah.
isolation. It's terrible.
No, and you need that support group, and that's so interesting. I mean, that you've got a lot of different topics. We're gonna have you back on the show for sure. You have a lot of great topics, and I know that everybody's listening and they're getting so much wisdom from what you're saying, and the healing through dance and embracing art. These are all things that are really near and dear to my heart as well. And I love that you came on today to share yourself and your heart and moments of vulnerability. And people are going to take so much away from all of this. And remember, go get that free dance class from Jenny. I'll put it up on the show notes as well if you guys don't know what the link was, but it's danceandheal.com. And Jenny, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, audience, for listening.
Yes. Oh, yes, they're loving this. So, again, tune in, guys, to this. You can always, if you miss the live, as you know, go to my show on Dream Vision 7 Radio, or go to my website at carrierowan.com, and you can get any of the podcast episodes that played before, or find me on YouTube. And so, thank you so much again, Jenny. It was a pleasure having you here. And remember, everybody, it is never too late to live your best story. Be well.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.